Thank you for joining the TSAC board meeting. Your meeting will begin momentarily.
Minutes. Live, yeah. This is Russ at TSAC. Who else on the phone with us? I know Dr. Gray, you're on.
Yes.
Anyone else? Gray, welcome. Hi, India, welcome.
All right, well, welcome everyone. Apologize for the delay. I believe we have a quorum now. With that, we'll let Pete take the roll.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Dr. Gary Adcox, Ms. Sheree Anderson, Mr. Will Cromer, Dr. Russ Deaton, Dr. Gray. Dr. Gray is on the phone. Okay. Mr. Hughes.
Here.
Ms. Lane. Mr. MacArthur.
Here.
Ms. McInnes. Ms. Mazzara. Dr. Presnell. Mr. Turner. Mr. Sims. Mr. Smelzer.
Here.
Mr. Smirelli. And Mr. Wilson. You have a quorum.
All right, thank you. And because of the number, and also since we have folks on the phone, we're going to do a roll call vote on each item. So starting with the adoption of the agenda, do I have a motion and a second?
So moved. Second.
Thank you. Mr. Abernathy, will you take the roll?
Dr. Adcox, Ms. Anderson, Mr. Cromer.
Yes.
Dr. Deaton.
Aye.
Dr. Gray. Mr. Hughes.
Aye.
Ms. Lane. Mr. MacArthur.
Aye.
Ms. McInnes. Ms. Mazzara. Dr. Presnell.
Aye.
Mr. Turner. Mr. Sims. Mr. Smelzer. Mr. Smirelli. And Mr. Wilson. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. Non-voting member.
Thank you. And next, approval of the minutes for the September 24th board meeting. Do I have a motion and a second?
Second.
Thank you. Mr. Abernathy, will you take the vote?
Dr. Adcox, Ms. Anderson, Mr. Cromer.
Aye.
Dr. Deaton.
Aye.
Dr. Gray. Mr. Hughes.
Aye.
Ms. Lane, Mr. MacArthur.
Aye.
Oh, Ms. Lane, I'm sorry. Ms. McInnes, Ms. Mazzara, Dr. Personnel, Mr. Turner, Mr. Sims, Mr. Smelzer,
Aye.
Mr. Smurelli, Mazzara.
Free
Free
Anderson, Comptroller's
Okay.
Office.
Okay. All right. Go ahead. Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for being here, everyone. We're going to get into later in the agenda specific legislative and budget items that apply more directly to TSAC. But just first, I thought in my report, I would just at a high level mention, I think from the governor's perspective, it was a big legislative session just concluded last Friday for higher ed, and wanted to mention a few items just as we're looking big picture at what's going on. So two of the governor's legislative priorities this year were higher ed related. So the Focus Act, which we believe will help organize higher ed in a way that is better aligned with the goals of Drive to 55 and better address the shifting landscape with programs like Tennessee Promise and other things. The Higher Education Authorization Act, we think will help THEC refocus its mission, especially in light of that changing structure in higher ed. And then if you look at the budget, it was also a very big year for higher ed. We had around 135 million more for higher ed programs, which includes 50 million more for the formula, includes 13.2 million more for TSAA awards. In addition to that, we had almost 300 million in higher ed capital for both improvements and maintenance. So overall, a very good year for higher ed from the governor's perspective. We also, through the Appropriations Act, made sure this board had the authority to make the decisions we need to make on the operating fund, which we'll be discussing some today, and I'm sure we'll be continuing to discuss at future meetings. But so that's important to us as well. And with that, I would turn over to Dr. Deaton for the Executive Director's report.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, let me welcome everyone here with us today. I want to echo a few comments as well. It has been a very good year for higher ed, a good budget year, probably the best one we've had probably in a long time. TSAA funding, operating funding, capital funding, a very active year too. Focus Act, HEAA you mentioned. We packed a lot into a few short months this session, but a lot of good came of it. A lot of responsibility coming our way as higher education policymakers, so we're anxious for that. I want to take a chance to, in the agenda we have a lot of talk about a lot of the big issues before this board, the Phelps transition, et cetera. I just want to take a moment to sort of acknowledge and thank the staff here at TSAC. It's been a tough year in the sense that there's been a lot of work, and a lot of folks here have really handled that with aplomb, and I want to thank them for that, thank them for their dedication. They have done a lot of good things this past year, a lot of work left to do, but I want to thank the staff for everything they've done this past year. Two more things, Mr. Chairman, if I may, and I want to actually pass the baton to two folks to give you some updates on two initiatives that are key to this board. First, of course, is Tennessee Promise. James Snyder is right behind me, over my right shoulder. Let me ask James, who directs Tennessee Promise for us, to give you an update on that program and some of the goings on and some of the recent data that we've released regarding its success. James.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Dr. Deaton, members of the board. I just want to provide you guys a brief update on the Tennessee Promise program. So from a Cohort 1 perspective, as we move through and conclude the academic year 15-16, so it's their first year, just recapping, we had 58,000 applicants. We've addressed, I think we've discussed this in the past meetings, 38,000 of those students submitted the 15-16 FAFSA on time to maintain their eligibility. We had approximately 23,000 students completed that community service. And then from there, as we're moving through the pipeline, we had 16,300 students were certified in that range. We're certified for fall eligibility, receiving approximately $15 million in funds from the fall and into the spring term. And now a small group of summer certifications at some of our TCAT institutions, the vast majority of that in the fall. And then we're now wrapping up some spring payments, rolling into our smaller group of summer certifications to conclude the academic year at some of our two-year institutions. 78%. One of the so a couple of other things, just kind of looking at that 16,300 students from the institutional perspective, represented 85% enrolled at the community colleges or Austin P State. 13% of that 16,300 were enrolled at the TCATs, and then we had 2%, approximately 2% were enrolled at the TCUA institutions across the eligible institution pool. A huge statistic that we've seen, and Emily reported on this at the Dr. House reported on this at the commission meeting, I believe a week and a half or so ago. 78% enrolled retention fall to spring, which is a tremendous statistic. And from a caveat from our perspective, eligible student retention is another huge. So awarded retention was approximately 70%. So they were paid in the fall, then they were also then paid in the spring. So that's a tremendous statistic from our perspective as well. And that ties into that $15 million scholarship fund. The average award is in the neighborhood of $920. So that's another statistic to put out there. And then to shift over, talking about the second cohort of students in academic year 16-17, we had just over 59,000 applications submitted for this pool. So that was a growth. So the buzz, as you've heard talked about during cohort one, there was the buzz around tuition-free community college and Tennessee Promise. That is still out there. We still have excitement and students submitting the application. 49,000 students submitted the 16-17 FAFSA. This would be specific to that cohort one group, or I'm sorry, the cohort two group. So again, that's a tremendous number. This group of students is still flowing through the eligibility pipeline. We tracked around 51,000 of these students that attended their first mandatory meeting. We are wrapping up the second mandatory meetings. I'm looking for some data from our partnering organizations in the coming days even for attendance at that meeting, that we can then get some statistics out on who is still eligible as we enter kind of the focus of tracking community service submissions there. And so just a brief update. Are there any questions, any points of clarification from a cohort one, cohort two, or where we're going perspective?
Chairman, I have a question. Oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Being a mentor for the second year, I noticed that there are a lot less touches that I'm making or contacts I'm making with the student. FASBA has already been filed by the time we had our first mandatory meeting. Previously, we were contacting them, FASBA deadlines coming up, please get that filed. The 49,000 that you said had completed FASBA, do we feel like that, I'm assuming that's an increase over the first year in filing of FASBA, and do you feel like that's because the mentor wasn't brought in until after? Did we have some possibly mentors that were not following their students close enough to encourage the FASBA filing?
I don't know that that could play a role potentially. I don't know that I would place that responsibility on a mentor. I know from TSAC perspective, we took a more active role as I was in the position in communicating with students. I've sent 5 communications from my office to students regarding the deadline. Right. Achieve sent 10, and then Ready, another one of our partner organizations, they were sending weekly updates, as was AIRS. So we took an extremely aggressive plan of attack to communicate about the deadline. We did extend the deadline a week due to some inclement weather issues that we had across the state, kind of affecting and impacting the student's ability to receive the assistance in FAFSA submission. So that was a big, it was an important shift, which did obviously, I'm sure it played a role in bolstering that number. I think if I recall, we had roughly 2,300 students submit in the last week, in that week of extension. So it did definitely play a role in that, getting the assistance out there to those students, because we had great weather in that week that we extended. So that played a role. The mentor assignment coming after FAFSA was really to shift the communication timeline from fall while they're in high school and spring while they're in high school to spring while a student's in high school and fall while they're in college, to foster some additional success once the student gets to college. So hopefully we'll see additional touches from a mentor's perspective in the fall term once they're at college.
And part of the rationale, too, was to try to make the best use of the mentor's time, right? Absolutely. I mean, the biggest drop-off happens once the FAFSA deadline passed, right? And so we had a lot of mentors showing up with mentees that didn't show up. And so it was, once FAFSA has passed, then those people are going to be people you need to work with. So
Thank
that's
you.
part of the thought.
Got a question on the retention you say from fall to spring is 70%
For payments, yes.
for payments?
It's in that 68 to 70. We're still receiving a couple of payments, so our statistics still fluctuating slightly. But yes, sir.
Do you know student?
About 80%.
80%?
Yes, it's in that
How does
78 to
compare?
80%
Is
that stayed in school.
How does that
That's-
compare with community college?
That's about in line with the historical
Is it
fall to
okay?
spring retention. Exactly. So there was, and Emily couldn't be here today for another commitment, but a lot of the speculation is that that retention rate could have declined some because you bring in new students, not sure what their preparation levels are, not sure what that new population is like. So we feel pretty pleased that we were able to maintain that macro level retention rate at about 78 to 80%. So.
Of course, now the FAFSA will be available in October for the following year. And so there could be an enormous amount of confusion for students just now starting thinking, I've already completed the FAFSA, now it's available. Now it's available in October. I've already done that. So have you guys thought through how your communication
Yeah,
plan?
we actually as an agency we brought in some text messaging capabilities, so we have that. So we'll be utilizing that. We'll be working alongside our institutions to clearly communicate to our current students that are enrolled that the FAFSA is now open. You need to do this, and we did extend. So the deadline, it opens 10-1, just from a timeline perspective on cohort 3, if you will, the 17-18 academic year, opens 10-1. It will close 1/17 to align with the Tennessee Student Assistance Award. So they will have a larger window, if you will, than traditionally 1/1 to 2/15, or in the range of 2/15. And so that will give us a little bit of extra time to touch the students from a school perspective in the high schools and the colleges and communicate clearly with them. So we're going to do everything we can to combat the confusion. Absolutely.
One of the other effects is with the guidance counselors in the high schools, and there's a strong effort to get to them as well to make sure, because they have been in a mode of January 1, January 1, January 1. Now it's October 1. So there's a strong effort from the from schools getting into the high school guidance counselors as well as the state. So, fine.
Other questions? Clarification? Thank you,
James,
Mr.
thank
Chairman.
you. Yeah, and let me kind of, off the top of my head, kind of supplement some of that. We've talked a lot about the college going rate that Promise produced. This is data that TSAC and TA who worked with the systems and TACUA to provide. Historically, our college going rate right out of high school has been 57, 58%. In other words, that portion of high school seniors, of our 70,000 high school seniors, pursue post-secondary immediately after high school. We're always in the middle of the pack nationwide on that metric. Because of Promise and other effects, that college going rate jumped up from about 58% to about 62.5%. So about a plus 5 percentage point increase. That's about 3,000 to 4,000 new students. That probably puts us somewhere near the top 10. We're still trying to figure out where we are, relatively speaking, to other states. That's a big number. I mean, college going rate's pretty durable. It's tough to move, but it moved a lot this past fall. So it's a testament to the program's success.
Very much.
James, thank you. And Mr. Chairman, one more update, if I may. Tim Phelps, our Grants and Scholarships Coordinator, is going to give you an eGrants update. Tim, please.
Thank you, Dr. Eaton, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Just a brief update on the eGrants system. And the eGrants system, for those board members who may not be familiar, is the system that we use to administer all of our state-funded, lottery-funded programs. And we have purchased eGrants. We made the initial purchase last summer, and we've been working with NGS to transition that system under our control. The last several months have consisted of hiring staff members. There's been knowledge transfer between NGS and TSAC. Beginning June 1, TSAC staff will assume control of the system. However, we will still have NGS as a resource to use, and they'll be providing support. Any issues that we have, essentially, we'll take the lead on any bugs or issues, but we'll have them there with the assistance. So we. Beginning in mid-August, we will move the system in-house, and we will take full control of the system. And this means the system is going to function as it currently does. That's the goal. And but if there are, like I said, any issues that arise, our staff will essentially take first crack at trying to resolve those issues. and if NGS is needed, then we'll get assistance from them. We anticipate the transition will be complete at the end of this year. This is when the NGS contract will expire for the system, and then we'll be fully responsible for the administration and the maintenance of. I'll be happy to.
Part of the busy past year I mentioned has been this. This is an incredibly complex technical challenge. Tim Phelps and James Hawkins and his crew have been building a system from the ground up. It's a very heavy lift, and it'll be up and running here soon. Excited about that, so I want to thank them for that. Any questions for Tim?
I'd like to ask. All right, Tim. As far as from the school's perspective, if we have ideas or suggestions to special reports and things like that, what kind of avenue or way that we have that could get something?
As always, we absolutely welcome any comments, criticism, questions about the system, and if there are enhancements that we need to make, then we are always happy to do that. We've had, and the board's obviously aware of the Reconnect initiative that we've had, and so we've been implementing a system, or a system to administer the TCAT Reconnect grant, and that's been one of our main priorities over the last several months. But we always have input from users, whether it's post-secondary users, high school users. We also use or have vocational rehabilitation counselors. So anytime that we have suggestions from any of the over 2,000 users that access the system, then we're happy to take any feedback.
Tim, thank you. Yeah, this will result in some savings. It'll give us a better product, better control, and much needed move for this agency. Mr. Chairman, that concludes my report.
Thank you, Dr. Deaton. With that, we'll turn to Mr. Smelser for a report.
All right, thanks. Mine will be short. Hopefully, we just recently concluded our TASFA annual conference. We had 268 members there participating. We had numerous people from TSAC and the state there to offer updates and information about the new programs and other things going on. We had Bob Moran from Senator Alexander's office there to give a federal update for us. The conference went very, very well. It was full of good information, and the right people were there to give that information to us. I wanted to, at our conference, we recognized two of your Loan Division people. Terry Parchment received our Distinguished Service Award, and Sandra Rocket, who retired from Dyersburg but came on to TSAC, received our Milestone Award. So for the number of years that she has served our organization, and I know that service not only is for our organization but in everything that they do. So both of those people will deserve those awards very much. Monthly, we have a financial aid advisory group that meets. It's all the TBR, community college, TBR schools. And we have a phone call every month, and that effort has helped us make suggestions to TSAC, which they've responded to for different issues and ideas. They're usually on the call. That conference call is very important to our group. We meet every quarter face to face, so that always helps us too. It's been a very collaborative effort, which is very, very important. One of the things that I've discovered recently is a lot of times information is passed from here, from the upper levels to the mid levels, and it doesn't make it to the boots on the ground people. And I would like to encourage anyone that is coming up with new ideas to allow our financial aid advisory group, who are doing the work, then we'll have to implement some of this stuff, to get that information and make sure that it's thought all the way through of how it will play out. A lot of times things are implemented and it's just the wrong time of the year. Great idea, just the wrong time of the year for the people that are doing the work. Of course, the FAFSA change coming out in October, but they're also going to be using prior year tax information. That is a great idea. All those tax information documents should have been done, so that will help us a lot. Hopefully, they'll be able to use the data retrieval tool on the FAFSA and be able to get that information out quicker. One of the things that I participated in recently, I was with a group of 19 people that went to Washington, D.C., And my group of 4 met with 5 different senators and their staff, mainly their staff, but we met with a couple of senators, congressmen. And then we had 3 other group meetings with the entire 19 with 3 more additional staff members of Congress. I met with Congressman Rowe, Congressman Duncan, Andrew Palmer of the education staff, Congressman Fleshman's office, Senator Corker's office, Senator Alexander's office, Bob Moran and Kathleen Smith from Senator Alexander's office met with us for about an hour and a half, which is very generous of them. Bob Moran was at our state conference, TASFA conference, and did a great job and answered a lot of numerous questions. My year as president is coming to an end June 30th, and I look forward to a little bit of a break. My wife said, don't volunteer for anything else after that. So I think my term on the board here ends then too. Karen Hauser is our president-elect from Vanderbilt, and Karen will be the president starting July 1 for TASFA and be a member of this board. I think that's it. Thank you. Appreciate that.
Schulzer, we appreciate your service. Now we'll move into the decision items portion of the agenda. And on item 1A, we'll turn to Mr. Abernathy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, behind 1A is the list of, on the second sheet, the list of the current officer and committee members in the current year, 2015-16 year. Our recommendation, Mr. Chairman, is to present these to the board for approval for the 16-17 fiscal year, with one exception, and that is Ms. Carrie McInnes. Her term is expiring at the end of this year, June 30, and so our recommendation is for Mr. Personnel, Dr. Personnel, and Commissioner Martin to be approved for the audit committee. And then once we know from the governor's office who the new person would be, we would have an opportunity to fill that 3rd spot on the audit committee, and we could approve that at the September board meeting. Keeping in mind the audit committee is 5 members, and currently we have 3 from TSAC and 2 from THEC. So these 3 would be 3 of those 5 that are on the committee. But that is the recommendation, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. And I'll ask for a motion and a second, and then we can have any discussion you would like.
I would so move.
Thank you. Is there any discussion on officers for this coming year? If not, I'd ask Mr. Abernathy to take the roll.
Dr. Adcox, Ms. Anderson, Mr. Cromer.
Aye.
Dr. Deaton.
Aye.
Dr. Gray. Mr. Hughes.
Aye.
Ms. Lane. Mr. MacArthur.
Aye.
Ms. McInnes. Ms. Mazzara. Dr. Personnel. Mr. Turner. Mr. Sims. Mr. Smelzer.
Aye.
Mr. Smerelli. Ms. Williams. Motion approved.
Thank you. For decision item 1B, we'll turn to Mr. Phelps.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Dr. Deaton, members. Under tab 1B, you'll find information on the TSAA overcommitment ratio for the 16-17 academic year. There is a chart that shows on the second page that shows the actual expenditures for TSA for the last 5 years, and then projected expenditures for the current year and next year. And then also the balance of the student loan program reserve that we use to help fund the TSA program as well. We try to spend all of the available funding by overcommitting the funds that we have, and history tells us that not all students are going to use the award who are offered the award, and some students choose not to enroll. They enroll part-time rather than full-time, or they change from a more costly institution to a less costly institution, and so we overcommit in anticipation of available funding. If you look at the last 5 years of the overcommitment ratio, you'll see that we've used an overcommitment ratio of 53% for 4 of those years. And for the current year, we're on track to spend $80 million. And so we're very close to that figure. And we were able to do this. The amount that we had committed was about 78 million. So In keeping with the board's desire to spend down the reserves, we allotted funds last year from the reserve, and then we also overspent this year. So we will be spending about $5.7 million from the reserve. But we've been able to do that. The board's given us flexibility to make additional awards so that we can fully expend all of the funds that are available and then spend down the reserve as well. So for 16-17, we're continuing to recommend the 153% that we. Second recommendation is to allot or use $4 million from the reserve, and like we said, we use that to cover our bases in case we overspend, but also we want to spend that down. The balance at the beginning of this year is about $15 million. Using that 5.7, we would spend that down to about $9.5 million. If we use another $4 million for the 16-17 academic year, we fully spend all of that, then we'll be at about $5.5 million in the reserve, and that's closer to the balance that the board has talked about wanting to maintain that reserve. So in summary, our recommendation is the 153% overcommitment ratio, $4 million from the reserve, and I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Can you remind us how many more people would be served with that $4 million?
With the $4 million, it's about an $1,800 average award, so $2,000 to $2,500, somewhere around in there, ballpark.
A second?
Second.
Discussion? If not, Mr. Abernathy, we'll take the vote.
Dr. Adcox, Ms. Anderson, Mr. Cromer.
Aye.
Dr. Deaton.
Aye.
Dr. Gray. Mr. Hughes.
Aye.
Ms. Lane. Mr. MacArthur.
Aye.
Ms. McInnes. Ms. Mazzara. Dr. Presnell.
Aye.
Mr. Turner. Mr. Sims. Mr. Smelzer.
Aye.
Mr. Smurley. Mr. Smurley. And Ms. Williams. 12 yes votes, Mr. Chairman.
Motion is approved. We'll stay with Mr. Phelps for item 1C.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Under tab 1C, you'll find the proposed rules for the Community College Reconnect program. The Reconnect grant, it is a new program that will start with the 16-17 academic year. It was passed by the General Assembly last year during the legislative session. After reviewing the program, there were some tweaks that we made to the program this year legislatively as well. The language in the statute is very specific regarding eligibility, continuation requirements, but I'll give you just a brief overview. So the program provides a last dollar scholarship to students who are independent as determined by the FAFSA. Typically those are adult students, but there are some exceptions. The student has to have been a Tennessee resident for 1 year. They have to have not been enrolled for at least 12 months, and then they have to have earned at least 30 hours, a minimum of 30 hours towards their associate degree. The funding, and it's $1.5 million, but the funding from the project pilot project will be distributed to the community colleges in the form of a block grant. And the colleges will identify those students who are eligible, make awards to those students, and then they'll report that information to TSAC. And to remain eligible for the grant, the students have to enroll and attend at least 9 hours. They have to maintain continuous enrollment and then also a 2.0 GPA. Students will be eligible to receive the grant until they have earned their degree. They have attempted the number of hours necessary to earn their degree, or 2 years have passed since their date of initial enrollment. I will say that TSAC worked very closely with Mr. Smelzer, the financial aid director, so it was definitely a collaborative effort. We also reached out to some of the admissions staff at the community colleges, so we tried to get as much input and feedback on the rules as possible from those that are administering the program, so appreciate their input. And with that, recommend passage of the rule. Happy to answer any.
We have a sense it'll start this fall and will continue until it's fully expended, the 1.5 million. Do we have a sense of the demand? Do we expect to use that all in this one cohort, or do you have any thoughts on that?
I'll let Mr. Smelzer answer that question probably better than quickly, but I'll let him elaborate.
One of the things that we have found, we had 600 students inquire on the website about Tennessee Reconnect. We contacted all of those via email and phone calls. 70 of them have responded since then, only 70 out of the 600. Once we went through the rules, the previous rules, there were 10 that would have been eligible because they haven't been out long enough or a variety of different reasons. And so now with the new rules, out of those 10, none are eligible because most of them lost it at the 9 hours. They can't do 9 hours. They're working. They could do 6, but they can't do 9. And that was the breaking point. Well, I can't do 9 credit hours. And that's the biggest thing that I've heard from other schools as well, is when they finally tell them they have to be enrolled in 9 hours, they can't do that. We had 600 inquiries, 70 responded, 10 that were eligible, and none of them are coming through.
Didn't they used to have an income requirement?
Yes,
36,000.
They took that out,
But
which was
that's
great.
been eliminated. Okay.
Which was great.
So I guess it's fair to say we know exactly what the demand will be in light of the changes,
No.
but there wasn't enough there. Under
I
the
think
old
we
right?
talked
Yeah.
about, and from my context, and I said I thought the funds would be expended quickly, but because we've had such a large number of inquiries, but that's the first I've heard from one of the campuses about. And we did.
I'm always
we
speaking
did,
for Pellissippi.
yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
if there are other schools that may have some great demands, but ours wasn't coming through.
Well, I think that's part of the reason why we did this as a pilot, right?
Exactly.
We want to be able to study and see if it has an impact or not, and so that'd be good to see. Okay, with that, do we have a motion on?
I just say it's
Sure.
a great program. We all like it very, very much. There's just that sticking point that got the students that were on our list of inquiries. Now, as we go forward,
Good to hear. There's no other questions from Mr. Phelps. Do we have a motion? Second. Any discussion? Mr. Abernathy, will you take the vote?
Dr. Adcox, Ms. Anderson, Mr. Cromer.
Aye.
Dr. Deaton. Dr. Gray. Mr. Hughes.
Aye.
Ms. Lane. Mr. MacArthur.
Aye.
Ms. McInnes. Ms. Mazzara. Dr. Personnel. Mr. Turner. Mr. Sims. Mr. Smelzer.
Aye.
Mr. Smurelli. And Ms. Williams. 11 ayes and 1 abstain.
Chairman of the board.
Thank you. So now we will move into discussion items, beginning with item 2A. We'll turn it over to Mrs. Pennington.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. I decided to go ahead and have a slideshow, so to speak, because some of these graphics I'm going to be showing you are pretty impressive, and I think they show up even better on the big, so to speak. The Loan Division has also had a major role in the Reconnect project. We discovered early on that with Reconnect, these are borrowers that have dropped out of school because life happens. And all too often, if they had a loan when they were in school before, they have defaulted on that loan, or it's in some sort of delinquency from which they need to get it cured before they can return to school. The loan is in default. The student is not eligible for any Title IV aid. So we started in 2015 pulling our plan together to work with these particular borrowers. We had to get contracts with each of the schools because we were having to get information from NSLDS, which is the national database for the student loan programs. So it took a while to get all those in place, but they are mostly in place at this point. We're still waiting for one big one, which is UT Knoxville, which we should have on board shortly. We're reaching out not to connect these loans, and that's been hard for the borrowers to understand, especially if they had loans through TSAC, because before we've been trying to collect them. But what we're trying to do and what we're trying to emphasize to them is that we're trying to get them back into repayment, find a way to resolve the default so that they can return to school and receive their Title IV aid. This shows what we've done to this point. We've gotten a certain percentage in repayment already. We've made a number of phone calls. We've sent letters out to the borrowers which identify not only TSAC and the Reconnect program, but the school also. We found that's very helpful to have the school's logo on those letters, so they'll open them more readily than if it was just from TSAC. We're doing a great deal of skip tracing. The other thing with defaulted borrowers is they don't always keep everyone informed of where they are. So we are doing skip tracing to find those borrowers. That will help the schools in the future to have that information, which we'll share with them. We did find a few that already have degrees, one that was deceased, and others that their loans were discharged through total and permanent disability, or we were able to help them get the loans discharged through disability, which means the default goes away. Our biggest and proudest program now is the license review program. This is where the TSAC staff matches the professional license for all the boards in Tennessee with our default database. And we get in touch with those borrowers and let them know they need to make payment arrangements fairly quickly or their license could be suspended. We have over 9,000 borrowers in the program currently. And since its inception in 2009, we have collected some $77 million in student loan default. More than 1,000 of those borrowers have paid those loans off. Some didn't want that threat of a suspension looming over them anymore, and so they just paid them in full. The majority have rehabilitated their defaulted loan, which brings the loan out of default, gives their credit a good cleaning up, and gives them a good new start in life. 77% of that money that has been collected was from the rehab program. And these are the graphs I wanted you to see. This is the number of 90-day letters that go out when we match the borrowers. We send them a letter, certified mail, telling them that they have 90 days to make payment arrangements and make that first payment. Suspensions. This is for those that either did not make the initial payments or after they had entered repayment, missed a payment. At that point, they're suspended. And as you recall from other meetings, the first time they only have to make one payment to get the suspension released. The next one they have to make 2 payments, and then, or no, it's 3 payments, isn't it, Terry? Terry's back there shaking her head no. 3 payments, and then after that it becomes 4 payments. So,
Jim, what's that number look like? Who are these people?
it's all across the board.
Is it
It's,
such as
attorneys, doctors, hairdressers, security guards that carry guns, dynamite experts. It's you name it. We've just about seen it.
So are we saying anyone that has a license, professional license in the state of Tennessee is in this list, and that would be insurance agents,
Yes.
all licenses?
Car salesmen, firemen. We've had some firemen, emergency folks. Yeah, so it gets their attention. These are the recessions we've done. This is where they've made the proper payments and they've entered into an agreed payment and are making their payments. These are our recoveries over the life of the program. And this next is my favorite because it shows that you can see that 77% that were rehabbed, the traditional payments where they just make their regular payment until it's paid in full. And then we always try to do what's best for the borrower. So there are a number that do a consolidation through the direct loan consolidation program. But non-recoveries, these are folks that we may find they were eligible for a total and permanent disability discharge. There may be some other reason they were discharged. Subrogation means they were sent to the U.S. Department of Education, and et cetera. Once they go into bankruptcy, and this number is fairly high right now, and that's because the first thing we transferred to in our portfolio was the bankruptcies. So it's not normally quite that high. Treasury offset. Scholarships to loans. This is a collaborative effort between Tim Phelps Group, the Grants and Scholarships Group. They have a number of programs, and this is all listed in your handout here, that it's given as a scholarship, but the student has to repay that scholarship through service with the state. If they do not repay it through that service, it becomes a loan program. It becomes a loan. And about 2 years ago, Mr. Phelps and his staff asked us to start helping to collect on those because we do know how to do collections. So we made contact with the borrowers. We reviewed the accounts, done our best to get them into repayment. So you can see TPD is total permanent disability. So we did find one that we were able to help get that through. There's still a lot in research. We're trying to help find them. We're doing skip tracing, this sort of thing. RNA work, that's reasonable and affordable. We work with the borrowers if they can't make the full payment to get a lesser payment. And Mr. Phelps approves those once we work through. So some very interesting information. Lots of letters. These letters right now are written for the borrower. So they're specific to the borrower and their particular needs. And we should be able to, because it's a small enough.
In the letter writing campaign, is there an intensity in the
Yes.
written form as the second and third letter are mailed out?
And we're getting ready to start doing the LR review for these borrowers also. We'll do that match against these folks, and if they don't make payment arrangements, we will be able to suspend their license or ask the licensing board to suspend it. Collection activities. As you can see, as we've worked through the process, we've gotten better and better. So it's involved is going up also. We're seeing folks pay them in full. We've found people that had already completed the service, just didn't bother to let anybody know. So as we talked about in our last meeting, the loan division is moving into a different role. We call that default management. We'll continue working with the schools on default aversion activities. We offer financial literacy to the various schools across the state, do entrance and exit sessions for their direct loan borrowers. We also work very intensely with them in default reduction or default aversion by reviewing their school portfolio reports on a monthly and giving them an idea of who is about to default and who you need to be watching for. We review their cohort default rate, do an analysis, and help them identify where there may be challenges they can offer to the U.S. Department of Education. And we're also offering skip tracing and doing a great deal of skip tracing for the schools.
I ask another question. Apologize for continuing to interrupt you. On the skip tracing, are we utilizing any credit reporting agency in that process that might notify us in the event there's an inquiry on that particular customer that we're trying, or person that we're trying to locate? I do know those services are available, and I was just curious, are we utilizing anything such as that?
We're about to bring in a contract on something called CLEAR, which is through the Westlaw group, and that contract should be coming into place very soon. And they help with skip tracing. Marcy's giving me the nod that it is in place. So we will be using that. They do tracing through addresses, find places of employment, etc. So before that, we were using the NGS system, GPro. If that borrower had an account on our system, then we could do some skipping through that, and NGS could get us a credit report on the borrower, which was very helpful. School services. We're providing consulting services to the schools in situations where someone's out, the director's out sick, or they're looking for a director. We're giving them support and training them. We're doing temporary emergency assistance, audit findings. We're working with one of the community colleges right now. It's been through a very strenuous program to that. We're doing training with the schools, webinars, and career fairs. So very busy. And we put some figures together for the TSAC meeting, and with our upper echelon staff, we have somewhere over 200 years of experience in the loan division. That does not include our client reps, who most of them have had 5 to 10 years of experience also. Okay, we've been talking about the loan portfolio transition to ECMC. You as the board made the decision in September of last year that it was in the best interest of our borrowers and our schools to move our portfolio to another entity. We notified the U.S. Department of Education, and they selected ECMC for that role. I skipped. Okay, we will go back. In NSLDS, which I mentioned earlier, is the National Student Loan Database or data system, and they allow a 3% error rate. This is just a little bragging I want to do. I don't want any error rate because these are students that are affected and their futures are affected. So we challenged and asked NGS to work on that rate. It was about 1% at that time, but I wanted it as close to zero as we could possibly get it. We've guaranteed over the life since we started in this business in the early 70s about $3 million in loans. 950,000 borrowers were assisted, and we guaranteed $13.1 billion. That's $1 billion in student loans. On that NSLDS reporting, we have been working closely with the U.S. Department of Education. We started out with just over 12,000 errors. That's now down to about 2,800. Of course, when our transition happens, we'll have to pass that gavel on to ECMC, but I think we have done a great service to our borrowers in that we've worked with schools, we've worked with lenders to make sure our borrowers are where they should be when this transition happens. So that will make life a lot easier for them. We have been working for several months now with ECMC. They've made me earn my keep, I tell you. It's been amazing to watch this process. I told you when the decision was made that I had heard a speech by Dave Hahn, their CEO, last year at an InShare meeting, and he was talking about taking care of our borrowers. And that's hits me right here in the heart. Has been my main goal since I returned to TSAC 7 years ago, is to look after these folks as a person and as a whole, not as a conglomeration of 3 or 4 loans. So I think that has paid off for TSAC, and it's definitely where I see ECMC moving these students. They check them, they double check them, they make sure everything's together and everything is right. So I want to introduce you to 2 of the folks from ECMC. Dave Hahn is here as their CEO today. And I'm going to turn the podium over to them so that they can have a little bit to say. You'll introduce Jan?
I will.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, if it's appropriate, before we move on, I would just like to congratulate you on the work that's been done, the delinquencies and the recoveries that have taken place. in my short time being on this board is fantastic and is so positive. I just want to congratulate you on that effort.
All right, thank you very much. Dr. Deaton, Mr. Chairman, and members of the board, thank you so much for having us here today. It's an honor to be here. I'm born and raised in Minnesota, a product of Minnesota's educational system, and I can't quite decide when I come to Tennessee if I feel a little inferior or if I leave thinking, you know what, I'm a little smarter for having spent some time in this bastion of higher education innovation and leadership that you all provide in Tennessee. I mean, you know, from Governor Haslam and the work that he's doing at the state level to Senator Alexander at the federal level, it's pretty impressive. And then to be among two agencies, THEC and TSAC, and just see the ingenuity and the commitment to students that Jane just articulated so well. It's truly an honor to be part of this process. Let me just share with you a little bit about ECMC. We've been around now for about 22 years. We were created really ostensibly by the U.S. Department of Education to help them transition from the Federal Family Education Loan Program to the Direct Loan Program. I think at the time they thought that process would take 2, 3, 4 years, and 22 years later, they're still inching their way towards this full direct lending scenario. Along the way, we were asked by them to take over different portfolios that were struggling for a variety of reasons, starting in the Commonwealth of Virginia, then Oregon, then Connecticut, and then kind of the game changer for us was when we were asked to take over the California portfolio. And over the course of time, we amassed about a $30 billion portfolio, a still active portfolio that we have that we're managing. And so then to be asked to help voluntarily, in every one of those cases, they were troubled portfolios. There were issues going on at those agencies. And so when we got the call to ask if we would step in Tennessee, we kept looking for all the problems. There's got to be something really wrong that we're being asked, and to this date, we still haven't found anything. It is an incredibly well-managed portfolio, as Jane, I think, just articulated, and so it's really a joy to be able to work with such a great group of people. And let me just acknowledge a few. I mean, I'm just telling you something you already know, but it has been incredible to work with Jane and see her leadership and the hard work and commitment that she brings to this process. Bill Heath there in the back, and the award winner, Terry Parchment, Diane Lejean, I'm sorry if I got that last name, was I close? All right, and Peter Abernathy, and then under the great leadership of Dr. Russ Deaton. And in our kickoff meeting, it was made very clear to us, and thankfully we were very much aligned, that this is all about doing the right thing for student borrowers. So while it's a big portfolio still, Jane gave you kind of over the course of time what's been guaranteed by TSAC. It's now just under $3 billion active portfolio, 329,000 loans. But most importantly of all, it still represents 143,521 student borrowers. And our job is to continue the legacy of great work that you have all done to support those students and treat them with respect and dignity. So again, thank you. I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Jan Hines, who is serving as our leader in this important effort. Jan.
Good morning, and thank you. I really appreciate the opportunity to be here today and talk about all the good work that TSAC and ECMC are doing and working towards the completion of that loan portfolio transfer over to ECMC. We've been working very close with Jane and Diane and talking about those types of outreach and financial literacy training types of programs that ECMC can bring into the state to complement what TSAC is doing. It is not our intent to replace all the good work that they have going on. We really do want to work together as a team going forward. I believe each one of you received just a one-pager about ECMC in Tennessee, and I'll kind of highlight some of the programs that we are discussing. First of all, we were at the TSAC meeting, and it was our first TSAC meeting. It was a pleasure to be there with almost 300 attendees, so we had the opportunity to meet a lot of really dedicated financial aid people, and we will continue to support TSAC. It's very important to support the financial aid administration that's in the state and work very closely with them. We have an agreement with an online financial literacy platform, a company called iGrad, and we're going to be bringing a demo of iGrad in next week so Jane and the rest of the TSAC staff can see it, and we're hopeful to be able to complement the financial literacy work that TSAC is already doing in the state and partner on that platform. It's a very innovative and exciting platform, very engaging for the students. We have a college planning guide, and I think everybody got one of the booklets. We're looking at working with TSAC and producing this in the state of Tennessee. I brought the Virginia-specific book so you could see how we customize it to each of our states. And I believe it's on page 28, where we work to list all of the post-secondary institutions and their requirements so that as high school students are starting to look and plan for going to college, they have as much information in front of them as they can have, and they can use this as a workbook as they start to decide which post-secondary institution they'd like to attend. We also offer college night events, and we've been talking to Diane about what the work that they do in the state and how we can work together to bring those into Tennessee. And those college planning nights are structured just like the opportunities books. So we bring the opportunities books with us, and the students use these as workbooks throughout the event. Last year, we had 109 college planning nights that we sponsored in our 4 other states, and we reached over 18,000 students and parents to provide them with some basic information about planning for college. Like TSAC, we also provide training webinars to the financial aid administrators, a lot on counseling, default prevention tips, cohort default rate challenges, and how to handle some of those. We have some printed materials on our website that are called Financial Awareness Basics, and that allows schools to download those and use those for training for borrowers or students that are in the classroom, budgeting, student loans, how to plan your budget while you're in the school and during your college years. We also offer 3 college access and curricula. We do this on a national basis. We have a program called Believing the College Dream. It's targeted to counselors and other administrators in the school that are touching the students to help the students realize that college is something that they may want to be looking at. And Believing the College Dream is targeted to grades 4 through 8. We thought it was important to start to bring that college planning educational materials down much lower than the high school level. Let's start thinking about what college means to you. Then we also have a program called Realizing the College Dream, and that's for grades 9 through 12. More on what you need to do to get into college, how to start planning the right classes, when do you fill out the FAFSA, all those kinds of training materials. And then we developed a program called Persist, and that's for post-secondary institutions, keeping students that are in college and the goal of completing the program. We have 2 college cost comparison tools. One's called Pell Abacus, and the other's called College Abacus. Free online. College Abacus is an aggregator of the net price calculator, so students can go out and enter 3 different colleges that they may look at planning to attend and find out what is the right one for them and what financial aid that they're going to get. And then Pell Abacus is dedicated really towards the Pell eligible students to see whether or not they have the ability to get some Pell grants. That kind of summarizes some of the programs that we're looking at. We're very excited to work with Jane and Diane and the rest of the TSAC staff. I just want to publicly say I really appreciate all the hard work that the TSAC staff has done with ECMC to do this conversion. This is a team effort. We could not do it alone. And we've worked very closely with them, and they've been very supportive. And we appreciate the support of Peter and Dr. Deaton. So, thank you very much.
Thank you, and Mr. Horn both for being here. I guess could you elaborate a little bit on the timeline? I know our target's June 30th. Are we still on track? And could you elaborate a little bit on what's been done to date and what's still left to do in order to meet that deadline?
Happy to do that. So we've been working not only with TSAC, but very closely, of course, with NGS, who is the aggregator of all the data and been doing all the servicing. We have a process during this conversion where we're taking data extracts from NGS and we're looking at getting 3 of them. We've received 2 already. The 3rd one's coming today. And what we've done is we've mapped the NGS system to ECMC system because the systems, of course, are different. And as we map that, we make sure that the data is cleansed. So in other words, if they had some data in a field of a phone number where they didn't have the phone number and they entered all zeros, it could be different than our system. So we make sure that everything that gets converted over to the ECMC system so there's no errors in it all. As of the last data extract, there was a 0.05 error rate, so it is in very, very good shape. We had the ability to really map that data when we recently did a conversion of another guarantor off of NGS's system. So we had the benefit of having that information, so the data is very clean. I anticipate when we get today's extract and we begin looking at that data conversion, it's going to be ready to be converted. We are on track. It will be done by July 1st. I don't question that at all. And then it'll be up and operational after the holiday, which I believe is July 6th. I think July 5th is a holiday for us nationally. So we're all ready to begin servicing the borrowers. We have, strong default diversion division. We have a strong collections division to make sure that those borrowers that are in default get the right advice to rehab or consolidate or whatever the right decision is for their certain circumstance. We have strong customer service. And as Dave mentioned, we're very aligned with TSAC and very focused on helping students. That is our goal. Our mission is helping students succeed. As simple as that sounds, it really is the dedication of our organization.
Are those communications?
Correct. We've been doing those jointly. So every borrower, regardless of what status they're in, will be getting a letter directing them whether they're in default, where they go, whether they need assistance in repayment, who to call.
I just wanted to say, Mr. Hughes, your words meant a great deal to me, but I have a team that we put together over the last 7 years that I will challenge any other team with them. I think they could beat the newest or best baseball team. Terry and Bill are a major part of that, but we have 12 others that have worked diligently over the last 7 years, and they're still working very diligently until this transition is finished. And I plan to keep them busy after that. So thank you all.
Any other questions for ECMC?
I'd just like to make a comment.
Sure.
From the school's perspective, most of my colleagues, a lot of them are very pleased that ECMC has taken over the portfolio. They do align themselves with the good customer service that TSAC has provided over the years, and we appreciate that very much. And as you can see, the different programs that they do offer for our students from early on. And so their programs dovetail with the governor's plans for the Drive to 55 as much as anything. So really appreciate that very much. Thank you.
Chairman, if I may, let me also thank Dave and Jan for the work they've done and for being here today. From day one, they and their team have been extremely competent and professional in this transition. They've been sensitive to the needs expressed by the staff and by this board last September. So I just want to thank them for all they've done in this transition.
We'll transition into the next discussion item, which is related. Mr. Abernathy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Dr. Deaton, members of the board. This is item 2B. This is really just an update on information that we've brought to the board in the previous several meetings. And that is an update on the operating fund and the use of those funds going forward. As you recall, the operating fund is where we have deposited the revenues that the guarantee agency has collected on the loan program over the past 40 years. And we have made, there are some required expenses that are taken out of the fund to help administer the FFELP portfolio. But beyond those required expenses, there are a variety of things that the federal government allows us to use those funds for. Two of the major transfers that we have made out of the FFELP or out of the operating fund were a $47 million and a $10 million transfer to the Tennessee Promise program to help establish the endowment there. So we are anticipating roughly a $22 million balance at the end of the fiscal year. And there will be some things that we still will have to pay with those funds as we transition out. There will be expenses paid to both NGS and ECMC. Beyond that, there are various activities that we would like to see those funds put forward to. Generally speaking, we would like to continue default management activities that Ms. Pennington has described earlier, and then also just general support for some of the state scholarship programs as well. Not knowing exactly what that balance is going to be yet or what the expenditures are going to be that will be required as we close this out, we aren't in a position yet to bring a recommendation to the board, but we anticipate in the September meeting having more specific recommendations for the board's approval. But as you look at the federal code that describes the operating fund and the uses for that fund, it does list administering the FFELP program, but then goes on to mention default aversion activities, school and lender training, financial aid awareness and related outreach, compliance monitoring, and other financial aid related purposes. So it's a fairly broad array of services, but most of which Ms. Pennington has talked about continuing to support. So we look forward to bringing a recommendation to the board next September for the use of that operating fund.
Thank you. And most of the things that you described would be one-time expenses. The one piece that wouldn't be would be funding default management activities on an ongoing basis. So can you talk a little bit about how that might work over time in terms of, are we looking to see how much schools use it? Are we trying to get it to a place where it's self-sustainable? We're going to ask the schools to have buy-in. Can you just elaborate on that plan a little bit?
Well, that's a good question, and you're correct. I think over time what we'd like to do is transition out of the funds from the operating fund into a self-sustaining model where we're contracting with schools for assistance in their financial aid programs. And how long that will take, we don't know yet, but we hope to take maybe a 3 to 5 year period to transition to a completely self-funded model. So it would, but again, we're really kind of just getting this off the ground, so it's hard to say at this point.
September, will we be at a place to see what that contracting will look like what sort of services we would be offering and what?
Right. Yeah, I think we'll have a much better idea of what we'll have, and there may be still some changes as we go forward, as we get suggestions from schools and so forth. But I think we'll have a pretty good idea of what we'll have available.
And Mr. Chairman, we've begun to have exploratory conversations with Dr. Presnell, with TBR officials about how this might look, what schools would need. We hope to also engage the schools directly here soon. So we've begun that process already.
I could just make a comment about that because, there have been so many changes in the student loan program. I mean, what we're talking about now is not the old guaranteed student loan program that had guarantee agencies. We're now talking about the interface with the federal government on direct lending programs. And in the older environment, there was a lot of support services that came from the lenders that helped these campuses, and those services have disappeared. So there's a vacuum there that needs to be served. And obviously, in the last 20, 30 minutes, we've seen how successful this group is in that. That's really good. And there are going to be ongoing changes. I think there's a decent likelihood that they'll eliminate the in-school subsidy for low-income students, which creates, I think, complexity for students as well and some loan-averse situations. But they went from looking at default rates at a 2-year cohort default. Now they're looking at 3-year cohort defaults, which puts the institutions in a slightly more precarious situation as well. So these services are going to be critically important. And so I'm really glad that we're looking at funding and operation that way. There are services out there that campuses can buy, but the price points tend to be so high that a lot of our campuses can't afford to do it. And so this would be an incredible service to provide. So I really want to compliment the board in thinking this direction.
Full perspective. Other questions or discussion on that at this time? Okay. We'll continue. Mr. Abernathy on budget and legislative items.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On the next tab, and we didn't have, of course, the final budget numbers, or the legislation wasn't all passed at the time of the printing. So you should have at your seat 2 pages that describe the legislation that was passed, and then a budget update as well. Looking at the bills that were passed in this past legislative session, there were about 21 bills that were submitted and discussed. Of those, about 6 did pass that relate to TSAC and our activities. There's a listing here, a summary of what each of those bills does. Just to kind of highlight some of those, Senate Bill 1584 by Overby is a step-up bill. This was a bill that, or a program rather, that started about 3 years ago for disabled students who don't graduate high school with a regular diploma, but with a special diploma, who previously were not eligible for the Hope Scholarship. So what Step Up did was it allowed them to attend programs in 3 or 4 different post-secondary institutions around the state. That number is now, I believe, 5 schools who offer this program. But it's a program that helps students transition to independence, and it basically gave them the Hope Scholarship for that program. It started off as a 2-year program. This bill recognized that several of the schools are now transitioning up to a 3- and 4-year program for these students. The next, Senate Bill 1654 by Senator Tracy, encourages both current and retired public school teachers to become promised mentors by offering incentives for that. Senate Bill 1695 by Chairman Bell allows homeschool students to receive the GAMS supplement, the $1,000 supplement to the Hope Award. Previously, they were not eligible for that because they didn't have a GPA measure to their application. So this allows for them to receive the GAMS based on their ACT score plus various other options, enrollment and dual enrollment programs, governor's school, and some other ways that they can get into the GAMS eligibility. Senate Bill 1708 just simply allows students who are children of military parents stationed outside of Tennessee to be eligible for the Tennessee Promise. Senate Bill 2039 allows students with documented disabilities to attend less than full-time to receive the Promise Scholarship. Otherwise, the requirement is full-time attendance. So this allows for those students to attend part-time. And finally, the Senate Bill 2595, the Reconnect program that Mr. Phelps talked about in detail with the passage of the rules earlier in this meeting. But that bill was simply amending the bill that passed last year. So that's an overview of the legislation that impacts what we do. And then on the next page.
Sorry, before you
yes,
go into the budget, in terms of the bills that affect the lottery program, do you have a sense of the cumulative impact to the fund?
Yeah, not cumulative. Yeah, it was very minimal. There were no major changes. This the step up, for example, is 100,000 range. I mean, it was just, yeah. I mean, we're talking 6 figures and less, which for the lottery program is very minimal.
That's a great question because in the past we've always, and some of the bills that were introduced have pretty significant impacts on the program. So I think it's good to have some stabilization, especially with the implementation of the Tennessee Promise. So that's a, you know.
Okay. The other sheet that you have then is the budget overview. This is hopefully a format you're familiar with. We've included for a number of years now, but just a couple of highlights from this. In the first section there, the Tennessee Student Assistance Awards, Dr. Deaton mentioned earlier an improvement of, or an increase of $13.2 million in state funds that was given to the TSAC award. That helps, that $13 million helps about 7,200 additional students, which brings us up to close to 50,000 students now that we're serving. So I think over the past 10 years, we've about doubled what we have in the TSAA program. So that's great news for those students.
Still leaves how many?
Over 100,000.
Over 100,000 eligible.
Yeah, we're chipping away at it though.
Don't have enough money.
Right. Yeah, over 100,000 that are eligible but not funded.
Yeah, correct. But I mean, I've been doing this work 20 years, and there's not been a governor more supportive of this program than Haslam has been.
And this number is before the 4 that we approved earlier, right?
That's correct. That's correct. In the, I'll skip down unless someone has questions about any of these numbers, but in the loan scholarship and the academic scholars programs, to give you just one update on that, the loan scholarships code includes the Tennessee Teaching Scholars Program, the Minority Teaching Fellows Program, the Graduate Nursing Loan Scholarship Program. And in particular, TTSP and MTFP, we have not fully expended those funds for a few years now, in spite of our efforts to promote and advertise that. They have been under expended. So we asked Finance and Administration to allow us to move $300,000 out of that loan scholarship code into the McWhorter program, which is in the Academic Scholars Code. That $300,000 will allow us to fund another 100 students in the Ned McWhorter program. And again, the McWhorter, if you don't remember, that's our merit-based aid. And those recipients that we fund right now, about 200 students, roughly 50 in each of the 4 cohorts. But they have an average ACT, I think, of 35 and an average GPA of a little over 3.9. So these are the students that we'd like to keep here in Tennessee. The award is $3,000, which is matched by the institution at $3,000. So a total of $6,000 for the student can be used at any public or private school here in Tennessee. So it's a great program, and this will allow us to fund an additional 100 students. So we're excited about that.
And thanks for that additional funding in there. I think that's critical. It's great because the institutions have skin in the game and they'll match those dollars. But since the implementation of the Hope Scholarship Program, this has kind of fallen off of the radar. Used to be there were two programs we always talked about: the need-based aid program and then McWhorter Scholars Program. Then the Hope came in, and all we, so I really appreciate that. The institutions appreciate it, and the students love to keep average 35 ACTs in the state if we can do it.
And obviously, if you're getting McWhorter, you're also getting Hope, right?
Yeah.
And the GAMS.
And GAMS.
So,
And GAMS.
so yeah,
GAMS.
you're looking at over 10,000 in just those two programs.
Right.
That's all my report then on the budget, unless there are questions.
With that, we'll turn it to Ms. Lejean for a communications update. Somewhere.
Mr. Chairman, Dr. Deaton, members of the board, please allow me to provide a brief update regarding the activity of the Communication Services Division here at TSAC since our last board meeting. You will find my outline in section 2D of your notebook. As always, in that first section, I just give you a list of the type of activities that we participate specifically during the school year, but even during the summer as well. That's, a fairly standard list. You will notice, though, that there's a new activity called the Tennessee FAFSA Frenzy. And this is a statewide initiative that is replacing the College Goal Tennessee program that we've done for the last 11 years. And I'll be going into more detail about this new initiative on the next page. Once again, I have included a snapshot of the numbers associated with the outreach activity since July 1st of last year. Of note, you'll see that the number of the College Goal Tennessee events increased over the past years as we are focusing on maintaining our #1 ranking in the U.S. in FAFSA completion. As well, you will see that we continue to do more of the Tennessee Promise application workshops that the schools request to assist the students with that process of applying for the Tennessee Promise Scholarship. Last year, we had over 175,000 interactions with students, parents, high school counselors, and financial aid and admissions offices across the state. By far, the most we've ever had, I'm sure you can imagine. So that first column is our numbers through March. So that's not our full year. Our full year goes through the end of June. The next section on the second page, it outlines the number of calls that we receive into our call center. We also do the live chat conversations and emails. And so I've given you an update there as well. You'll notice that for 2015, our numbers weren't quite as high as in 2014, thank the Lord, because 2014 is when we introduced the Tennessee Promise, and we were drowning in calls and emails and live chat conversations. So the word's getting out. Students are know better the answers to the questions, and so you'll see that we're don't have quite the high call volume. Okay, so that bottom section there on page 2. Let me just talk a little bit about the FAFSA Frenzy. TSAC, THEC, the Tennessee Department of Education, and all 3 of the partnering organizations for the Tennessee Promise, we got together to create a plan to increase the number of students who are completing the FAFSA. And this can be for the adults as well, but we're really focusing with this group on the high school students. Representing TSAC on that committee are Jason C., Darylyn Porter, and James Snyder. As previously mentioned in our report this morning, the FAFSA process really has significantly changed this year due to the new application deadline or application opening of October 1st, the use of the prior tax information. Last year, they introduced the FSAID, which was really problematic, and we're continuing to work through that. And even the IRS had issues with their data retrieval process. So we're really trying to rally the troops to come together to best help the students as well as the adult learners who need financial aid this year. So the Tennessee Department of Education did, in collaboration with the partnering organizations, a survey of the high school counselors at the schools who had really high completion rates for their FAFSAs to get best practices. We're even now compiling a toolkit that we will send out to all of the high school counselors, with marketing information and things that they can do as we message to the media, to the high schools, to the students, to the parents, all of the benefits of completing the FAFSA. And we have started the communication process. The first email went out, I think it was last week, from the Department of Ed to the high school counselors. So in the past, once the FAFSA opened on January 1, we had 46 days to get all of the seniors in the state of Tennessee to fill that out. So with the opening of the application on October 1st, we now have 109 days, which is obviously more than double that. And we really anticipate that that's going to help us increase the percentage of the students who are completing the application. I've listed there at the bottom 9 counselor training days for the FAFSA Frenzy, bringing the high school counselors together to talk about what they can do to assist their students. The deadline, as I think James mentioned, for Tennessee Promise as well as the TSAA award is January 17th, 2017. One of the trainings that Darylyn and Jason and their crew do is the NT4CM counselor training. We do them in November, honestly, because that's really the only time we can fit them in. But we're going to move those up to September now in conjunction with all of these other trainings. And we're going to go into great detail and depth for the counselors. The counselors, a high school counselor can tell you they need to fill out the FAFSA, and they can tell you when, but they very often don't know how to and don't know the questions that are asked. So we're going to go into a lot of detail at the NT4CM trainings in September on FAFSA completion. My last page there, I've included our territory map for the outreach specialists, and then the standard ways that you can get in touch with us online. I am currently working on the new brochure that will hopefully be ready July 5th, if all goes well, July 6th-ish in there. So we're going to, we deliver these brochures, and we'll also be delivering the new guide that ECMC is creating. And we normally do that in August, September. We're going to try and start doing that in July. We'll see if we can pull that off. Lastly, Dr. Deaton asked me to share with you with regard to a financial aid panel that we did last week. So this isn't in there. This is just something that we did on the side for the THEC Commission work session last Wednesday. Jason C., our he's our Assistant Executive Director for Outreach and College Access, put this together, and he led a panel to discuss all of the changes that are going on in financial aid. And I think that they did a really good job. On the panel was Sue Pedigo. She's the Director of Financial Aid at Vol State Community College. Christy Hutchinson, High School Counselor at East Magnet High School here in Nashville, as well as Annie Trout, one of the TSAC outreach specialists. Now, it was a great panel, lasted about 45 minutes. You can see it on the THEC Commission work session replay if you want to check that online. But I wanted to just give you a really big picture overview of this. So we discussed a wide range of topics, from the FAFSA changes to what takes up the most time for the high school counselors these days, to what parents and students struggle with the most in this ongoing process and all of the changes. And then we asked for any changes they'd like to see, and that was pretty interesting. So let me just give you a few takeaways from that conversation. First, our high school counselor, Christy, communicated that there's a growing pressure on the school counselors to spend more time helping the students to transition to college. And of course, that makes sense since we are creating all of these new initiatives and new agendas and new scholarships. And so they are feeling a great amount of pressure. But the reality is that they're dealing with class scheduling and testing and other, she said, real world issues that 16 and 17-year-olds are facing. And the reality is that helping students fill out these forms to go to college is just not as urgent as some of the other issues that she's dealing with. She gave a very sad but realistic example of one of the students that she's working closely with. And he got a speeding ticket or a parking ticket and didn't have the money to pay it. And I guess there was some notification that came through the mail that he didn't see. And he eventually there was a warrant issued, and he was arrested and put in jail for 3 days during a time when exams were happening at school and some application deadlines were happening, and he missed them. So he's now no longer eligible for some things because of some actual real life issues that he was having to face. Now, again, not every student has to go through that, but she said it's those kinds of things that that she spends a lot of time dealing with. And these are first generation students, the ones that we're targeting. So while she would love to be spending all of her time helping kids go to college, that's just not her reality. For Annie, the answer that stood out for me was when she was asked, what does she see the most difficult thing for the students and the parents, and what do they struggle with in this process? And her answer was so good that I asked her to send it to me. So I'm just going to read it to you because I don't want to paraphrase, because she just did a great job. Deadlines. There are so many deadlines. I understand the importance of deadlines, and you understand the importance of deadlines, and I think the parents understand that there have to be deadlines, but I'm not sure that they're aware of the amount of deadlines. So let's think through the college process. You've got admissions application deadlines, housing application deadlines, institutional scholarship deadlines, and if they're applying to more than one school, which most students are, all of those deadlines are different, and all of the applications look different. Then you add to it state aid and federal programs as well. But for Tennessee, we've got the TSAA deadline, and we have aligned it with the Tennessee Promise, Ned McWhorter, HOPE, and the Tennessee Promise, the brand new program, adds a new application, the FAFSA, first mandatory meeting, second mandatory meeting, community service, and FAFSA verification. And all of that has to happen in their senior year, while they are playing sports, doing their senior project for graduation, taking the ACT again, registering, taking honors classes, doing dual enrollment. They're leaders on their high school campuses. They are involved in their clubs, community organizations, and homecoming, and prom, and graduation. And that's for 16 and 17-year-olds. I mean, it's kind of just overwhelming just reading this list. A lot of these students as well work part-time jobs to financially help their families. And this is just a lot on the 17-year-old's plate. Tennessee students are lucky to have a lot of great organizations in our schools, fabulous guidance counselors, and teachers that are trying to help them navigate this maze. But imagine, as a parent, if you've never gone to college and you're trying to assist your son or daughter with this process, this is overwhelming. And if you miss one deadline, you could miss out on major opportunities for your student. So Annie communicated that that's the struggle that she sees that the outreach specialists are really having to help deal with. And that came through in that panel discussion. Again, I think Annie summed that up quite well. And then lastly, when Sue was asked, the director of financial aid of Allstate, what changes she would like to see to the financial aid process, I'm going to quote her, she communicated, the financial aid system is extremely complex and is ever changing. If I was in charge and I could change one thing about financial aid, is that there would be no more changes for the next 2 to 3 consecutive years. So obviously that I don't think we can even, well, you can imagine, but the rest of us can't really fully imagine how this has impacted the financial aid offices as well. So it was a very informative presentation, I felt. I hope that the THEC was able to learn and to glean some things. Again, you can see it online if you'd like. But that's just kind of a summary of kind of the highlights. So that concludes my report. Are there any questions?
You need some help getting some private colleges involved in the FAFSA frenzy training, let me know. I know you have Northeast Tennessee as an open location. Milligan might do that for you in Johnson City. So.
Oh, okay. Well, but that's a good point. At TASFA, after I made a similar presentation, there was some discussion about bringing TASFA in to have a representative on in this committee, and we should do the same with Chakua. That would make sense.
Thank you. Our final agenda item is the conflict of interest policy statement, and I'll turn it over to Dr. Deaton to give the instructions on that.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, to avoid harassing emails from Pete, please fill this out if you could now and leave it with us, or if you need to take it with you, just please submit it, designees and board members, if I'm correct, Pete, on that. That's in it's tab 3A. Also, too, for those on the phone, we'll have the PowerPoints that were presented today on our website soon, so you can see those as well. And finally, Mr. Chairman, we talked about the McWhorter Scholars earlier. Last July, we had the first McWhorter Scholars recognition ceremony, which went really well for the recipients and their families at the residence. Just a chance to honor them and to get to know them and what their college plans are. There will be a second one of those this July, also at the residence. If we have a date, I'm forgetting it now. July 21st, Kate Derrick tells me. Thank you, Kate. And we'll be communicating more details about that. But of course, all board members are indeed welcome at that event. There'll be a larger class this year, 80 or so, if I remember right, higher than the usual 50. So it'll occur in July. And that's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Are there any other issues to bring before the board this morning?
If we submitted that form electronically, assuming we would have a conflict of interest.
Have you? I'm sorry.
Yeah. I mean, it was distributed electronically. I completed it that way and sent it back.
Oh, okay.
So did I.
Are they?
I did as well.
Okay. They didn't to me. I'm not sure. Okay.
You could resend
we'll,
those, please.
We'll find
Yeah.
them.
Either that or I could sit here and do it.
Okay.
I'll do it.
If you have a minute, that's great. Yeah.
Okay.
On that point too, let me ask, I want to make one introduction. Katie Lucci, if you could stand up, please. Katie has been back there diligently taking minutes. She's the new executive secretary for THEC and TSAC, and you'll be getting to know Katie and receive a lot of emails from her. So Katie, I'm glad you're with us.
If there's nothing further, without objection, we'll stand adjourned. Thank you.